everybody, it's Alison Wheeler bringing you my next video in our YouTube series where we're uncovering some maybe demystifying some falsehoods and uncovering some truths, different topics that I think are really relevant, particularly to women and women in business. And it is my absolute pleasure to have Barbara on with me today. She is a singer, songwriter, and a vocal production coach. She will tell you a little bit more about herself and her background. And of course, at the end, she can tell everyone where we can all find her if you are wanting to follow her or connect with her. So, Barbara, it is my pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
It's so lovely to be here, and I'm always excited to speak things about the voice and how that is so interweaved into our lives and who we are.
Absolutely. And that importance of our voice is a gift, right? And so often we're not using it. And so, I speak with business owners all the time around communication and the importance of communicating what you actually want, asking for it, all of those things. And I think, our voice is unique to us, and it's such an individual thing. It's our one of our unique expressions in the world, and it's important that we actually use it. So can you tell us a little bit about, because there's loads of people who are watching who will not know who you are. Can you give us a bit of a background about yourself?
Sure. So yes, I'm on the Gold Coast. I run a small studio here from my home. You can probably see that there. And I have been in the arts ever since pretty much I finished school. So I knew I was going to be traveling a road of the creative arts, basically. I loved painting, I loved singing, I loved drama, I loved all of those things. And I guess that's expression. And I also loved humans ever since I was a very, very little girl. And so I would love to observe humans. I would draw humans. That was one of my most favorite things to draw, is tell picture stories about humans and their relationships with each other. Mum, dad, obviously little kids, and then other sort of grandmas, and just whatever. I would do that for hours and hours. So and I always dreamt that I would do good things. I wanted to be famous. I really wanted to be famous. So I worked hard and I did some movie stuff, and I did some singing, backing vocalist for people. Like I dabbled in a whole lot of stuff, always thinking I wanted to have this profile, not because I wanted to wear fancy clothes and go to fancy parties, albeit that would be fun. That wasn't it. It was that I wanted to share and empower other people. And I thought if I was famous or, well known, that I could actually do some really good stuff, like really, really help people because they look up to you, right? So that was always my drive. And I wrote a children's show, and I almost got it signed with ABC Kids, but then that sort of all fell through. So I've just dabbled in all of these things. But meanwhile, I've always kept my vocal production and my background as a classically trained singer there bubbling over. And I didn't always sing as a classical singer, but I have done that as well. So I've had a really fun career, and I always say I've never had a day job.
Yeah, I love that. But
Or a
I
real
think
job.
that, you've ebbed and flowed, but the goal has always been the same, which is
It
to
has.
actually help other people, right? To empower
Yes.
other people. And I think you can ebb and flow. You can change when you know what the purpose is or the goal is, because it might take many iterations to figure it out and to find where that is, right? It's not very rarely do you land on it the first or second or third or many
Yes,
times, right? It takes a while to refine what it is and to have the courage to do so. Like you've got to be brave, right, to be able to
you
do
do.
that. So
You
let's
do.
circle to the topic for today, which is the importance of voice. So
Mhm.
tell me, like, in terms of, why do you think it is so important to people to find their voice?
Yeah, well, my journey in the voice has really given me so many light bulbs on what it is. What is the voice? Like, we are born, we breathe, and then we vocalize. That's exactly what we do. So it's special. It's actually very special. And no baby cries the same way. No person sounds the same way. Albeit a lot of people try and sound like other people. And here in the studio, I'm always encouraging them when they come into me for us to work on finding this beauty that is their voice. I feel like from the time people are born, they're shut down with their voice. And it happens without even any intention. It's really like even mum maybe being someone who's like, shh, be quiet, got to watch the news, or shushing people all the time. In schools, we've got to be quiet, we can only speak when we put our hand up. I mean, I know there's reasons for that, but then there's the whole thing. I mean, I get this all the time, people saying, oh, I joined the choir and the choir teacher told me to leave. I wasn't good enough. I can't sing. All of this, when I truly believe that this voice that we all have is part of our healing mechanism in our own body. And like you said, it's a gift. It's absolutely that. But none of us got the memo that it was a gift, right? So when we were born, we didn't realize it was a gift. Then we got told that we couldn't sing and we couldn't, should need to be quiet. So this gift has gone, I guess it's sort of there, but it's not really known about, even in our own body. So for me, I love when I get the people coming in here and they finally connect to it. It's just such a joy for me.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of those, like, it's so untapped, right? Like, that's what you're saying, is it's because it's been vilified in a way, then it's an untapped resource that we have within ourselves to use, and it's our primary mechanism for communication
It is. It
and
is. And
connection.
right, when you're angry, what happens to the voice? Like, there's things that happen, there's tension. If there's grief, and I've actually just gone through a fair bit of grief in my life. And how did that affect my own voice? Well, I'm always the guinea pig for everyone else. So, these things that I do with my students, a lot of the time have been tried and tested on myself, and feeling choked up at the loss of someone you really love, and how that we need to release that. And the voice is there. It's been such an amazing healer for me in the last year and a bit, for that, and look, there's no limit to the amazingness of this voice. And I guess I was so fortunate because I had an amazing teacher who taught me voice like this. She said, Barbara, it's a mind, it's a body, it's a spirit, it's a connection to divine source. It is all of these things. It's therapy. It's all of it. It's there, right there. And the vocal folds, I mean, I think I've shown you vocal folds, but like a lot of people don't know what they look like. And they look a lot like a woman's private parts. And at the moment, I'm actually doing a fair bit of research and my own sort of working on my own workshop with women, and the whole power of that, the two connect, because they're so connected. Now, when I say just women, no, men also have that internally as well. So, this this root chakra, and the vocal folds are so, yeah, they're so divine. It's so divine.
Yeah, I think there's a power, in the expression, the power in the voice, and then that allows an individual to connect to who they truly are, right? Like that bigger than just the body you're in. And because I think everyone has a purpose, everyone has a message,
They do.
everyone has so much more potentiality than we even care to imagine. A lot of people are frustrated because they're not living to that potential. They don't know how to get it out, and there's so many ways to do that. I think that voice production or a singing or a voice coach is one of those many ways to help you get that out. So for me, I mean, I know that we've worked together and it's an amazing journey to reconnect to the voice and allow that to occur. Plus I took my husband and my daughter as well, working through all of those things
Exactly.
together as well, because for us, we wanted it to be a family activity. It's important my daughter learns the power of using her voice, and that it's okay for her to use her voice when society's going to tell her otherwise. So finding ways to make sure that that message gets through to the people who are important in my life. And that's why I wanted to bring you on, so that you could speak to that, so that people knew, like, there's actually help. Like, there's a way you can help yourself. And it's not just about singing, is it, Barbara? It's
Oh, no.
so, yeah, okay, that might be the method, but there's so much more to it. And I think sometimes when people think of it as singing, then they want to run away from that because of all of the ideas of, oh, I can't sing and I blah, blah, blah. But it's an expression. It's learning to use your voice and learning to use your authentic voice. You said earlier about how often people try to use someone else's voice. Well, from my experience in coaching business owners, often they try and map someone else's idea of success, and that doesn't work well either. It doesn't end well when you try and emulate someone else. You want to be your authentic, own defined version of that. So I often work with people on defining what's your version of success. Your way of
Exactly.
doing it is what's your authentic voice, right?
Because then you're tapped into your own flow. And so when you're in your own flow, it's amazing how things open up. But if we're still not quite in our flow and we're looking at that one's flow and that one's flow and trying to navigate that, there's always going to be obstacles. And there's the universe saying, no, 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 don't do it that way. I've given you the pathway. Here it is. You're just not looking at it. You just think you're not good enough. Yeah. And often when I unpack the voice, when people come in or I'm doing an event, the first things I say when people say to me, oh, I can't sing, or I can't do public speaking, or I'll say to them, but who are you comparing yourself with? Because we have to actually get rid of that thought first. So once we get rid of that little obstacle and we aren't comparing ourselves to anybody, then magic starts to happen. And I mean, I feel every day I sort of feel so much gratitude that people feel safe in this space. Because the other thing about the voice is it's so vulnerable. Humans come to me in such a vulnerable space, and to express yourself is scary. And so I try to create a really loving, nurturing space, a bit like when they're first born. I really think a lot about the initial birth of that human. And of course, I'm not there on their journey, but if I can recreate a safe nest for them to explore their voice with me, and there's no wrong and there's no right and there's no weird notes and all of that, there's just sound, and we can explore sound together. It's so empowering to watch them start to shine, and they come in week after week saying, oh, I did this you know, I said this, like, and sometimes it's not, like you said, it's not a singer, right? Sometimes it's just, it can be someone who's had a really tough time and has been like maybe taken advantage of or whatever. And I can see it. They come and they said, I told them that I didn't like that, and da 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 da. And things shift in their life. I see it all the time. It's just these amazing shifts, and then they slowly get their little light. I always say all my students have a little light, and that sometimes it's just a little dim, and then as they calm, it just brightens and brightens and brightens. And you know, then they go off and they do their things and they shine in their own ways. And I feel like a mother just watching them all do their thing.
which is a beautiful thing, right? So
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
people who are listening, what's what's one thing that you would really want them to know, um, from your perspective? What do you want them to know, and what's one thing that they could do to
Yeah.
help them find their voice each day?
Okay. Well, we'd start with the breath. So we have to really become mindful of our breath. And, you know, there's loads of breath work happening everywhere. And that's great. That's great. What I like to teach here is that we breathe deeply into our back. So we're not, you know, doing any of this, but we're actually just expanding deep into the back here, and without any movement of shoulders. So once we can regulate that and we start to get that working, so any of the viewers that are viewing this, you know, I want you to sit there and actually now as we're speaking, you know, breathe into your back. And if you can't connect there, I always share this little trick, which is leaning over and then breathing into the back this way. So you have to think it. You have to think into your back. And then you'll feel the sides expanding and you get this lovely stretch. Now, when that starts to happen, practice it, practice it, practice it. And then we add a little partial sound, which is a siren. And the siren is literally that. And imagine a little child. Again, we go back to the child playing. Now, the only thing with this is if you are going to practice this, you have to make sure that you don't do it in your throat. And I can see people are going to go, what? Huh? Vocal folds are here. Yes, they are. But the vocal folds are only the point of contact. And this is a big message I really, really want to share with people, because the point of contact, yes, they come together and they vibrate, but the sound does not live there. The sound is moving upwards and into our head cavity. And this is where sound should come from and float out of. And so too many people, and even in the professional singing world and the acting world and public speaking world, and are damaging vocal folds left, right, and center. What was it? Lewis Capaldi recently lost his voice at Glastonbury. I don't know if you're across that. And my heart really went out to him. I know he has other, you know, health things going on, but, you know, it's nothing worse than being in front of people and then not having this empowerment, you know, but the audience really supported him. So I really, my message to everybody is make sure that you are putting your sound into the head cavity. Low notes will never go lower than your top teeth. So when I start the siren, I want to feel a vibration here at the top teeth, and then moving upwards. You can explore all of your head with that. And the beauty about that, Alison, too, is that it's massaging the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, these glands that are in us that we really don't really have many ways of giving them love. So when we are making sound, we are actually connecting with those parts of our body as well. So people could practice that, just sirening very gently. Don't push, no pushing. Vocalizing and singing in particular is 98% thinking and not so much grunt. We see a lot of grunt, and whilst that might be okay for a little emotional color or things like that in songs, we want it really to look beautiful and effortless. They're the sort of singers most people resonate with, when they open up their mouths and it just, this sound comes out, and really they're working internally, but the audience don't see that work because it's mostly thinking and supporting breath and having right placement and all of that stuff. And that can also be applied for speakers. I see a lot of public speakers speaking a lot of the time, and you'd find probably in business, and they're vocally struggling. They're really struggling, and it's their livelihood. This is what I say to my vocal users. You don't want to have downtime or knock back work because the voice can't cope. We need to create sustainable ways. And really, we go back to our birth. The baby could cry for hours because everything was working right. And so that's kind of what I do. I take people on that journey back into what really is in them. It's not me. I'm just pulling what's there, sort of under a whole lot of stuff.
And I add 100%, right? Like, it is a journey. You can go to something because you think you need one thing, then you uncover that it's actually something else as we, pull below that. But you can't see what that necessarily. It's just that journey. And for you, that's that journey of having people and allowing people the space to find their voice and to express it, which I think is an absolutely beautiful thing. So, Barbara, look, I really appreciate your time and jumping on and giving people some amazing insight as to why finding your voice and expressing your voice is so important, and some really great tips around, just some very basic tips on how to actually find your voice, but not just find it, to look after it, right? Like, it is a gift, so then you want to look after it. So I
Exactly.
appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.